Hello. Yep, we're a little bit late on Sunday today. Getting back from going to camp with my scouts. So we were out in a cabin and we hiked in and hiked out, and it was a long day, a long couple of days. So that's why we're a little bit late today. And I think I'll make this a little bit shorter today. But we're going to talk about no-line coloring. So when people talk about no-line coloring, it basically means that a lot of the edges or the lines around your stamp kind of fade into the background, that they're not prominent. So you use an ink that isn't as prominent, a color, like not a black. So, hi Carol. We're going to do a little bit of no-line work today. And we'll talk a little bit about inks and things like that. There's all kinds of inks on the market, and I'll show you my faves. And yes, they're so cute. And you guys can pick which mouse we color. So I'll show you the mice first, and then I'll go about talking a little bit about the card. Anybody who comments live, I'm going to give away today's, my card here, because I'm just going to do coloring today. But I will send this card to someone who comments today. So this is a honeybee stamp set called Sweet Spring Mice. This is in the shop, so you can get this from Scrap and Stamp, absolutely. So I want you to have a look at them and tell me which one you'd like to color, and then we'll talk about inks. So we have a little mouse in a pot. We have a dandelion mouse. We have a pail with a bouquet. There's a little tiny bouquet. There's a strawberry, a little daisy mouse, and a little shamrock mouse. So you guys decide which ones that we're going to color today. This is a big set, so you got a lot for your money. Hi, Jenny. Chilly and rainy there in Roseville. Is that... I want to say Ontario, but I could be completely wrong. What state or province are you in, Jenny? Okay, so you guys have a peek at this, and you tell me in the comment section which mouse you want me to do today. And then we'll talk a little bit about inks and my favorites. So, of course, when you're doing a no line, mouse with a pot of flowers. Okay, Sandy's got her vote in. Hi, Sandy. So you can use any kind of light ink, and because you want it to kind of fade into the back, you want it nice and light. And I even go for like distress inks when using with my Copics here. This is a nice light color to use. Let's see if I can grab a piece of cardstock, and we'll just do a little swatching. Old paper, there's quite a few light colored distress inks, perfect for this. This one has kind of got like a green undertone to it, but because distress ink sinks into the paper, you lose a lot of color away from your image, which is kind of what you're looking for, right? You don't want it to be prominent and stick out. So I also really like Memento Desert Sand. And of course, it's just like its name. It looks like a soft sand color. And of course, there's many inks. There's a company called Ink on 3 that has, it's called Fade Out ink, made for no line coloring. So this one's kind of unique. It's very, very light. It's kind of got a greenish gray undertone. But this ink is very different in the sense that when you color over it, it almost darkens the pigments in your coloring. It's a weird one. It's not my favorite, but it's worth a try if you have a friend. Try out theirs. So, like I said, lots of inks on the market. You could go gray, you could go browns, light greens, even light blues will work. So, yeah. Jenny says mouth and shamrocks could be, yeah, and that's kind of why I went for the shamrock on this card too, because we're heading into March, right? Okay, so today, this, my original card was made with Memento Desert Sand. So today we're going to use Distress Ink, the old paper color. So let's slide these away. And I think we got 2 votes for the mouse with the pot of flowers. So we'll pull that one out today. So, now, of course, you don't have to use Copics for this. You could use this with acrylics. You could use this with watercolors. Any kind of medium you can do this technique with. Okay, it doesn't have to be Copic markers. It could be with your pencils, too. You get some really nice work done with your pencils in a lighter line. Excuse me. Got a froggy in my throat from all the smoke. We had a wood burning fire in our cabin, and we almost smoked ourselves out. Thankfully, well, maybe thankfully, our smoke detector wasn't working in the cabin. So, okay. Now, the one thing, too, is that you can ink up your image as many times as you need to. So if, like, the first inking, you can't see a whole lot, then ink it again. So you can always deepen and darken this. Can't get my nails under. Okay, so we're going for the old paper color of Distress Ink. So this isn't your oxides. This is your regular, good old Distress Ink. Okay. So it's still quite blotchy. It's light in some areas. And this is what will happen with a brand new stamp. I did not condition this at all, which means I didn't rub my hands on it or take it my white eraser to condition it. So I've never used it before. And this is what happens when you have a new stamp. So we're going to go one more time, at least one more time. Now this ink will sink into the paper, so I'm not worried about it being too blotchy either. That's a lot darker, okay? So we can still work with this. And the first image would have been fine, but it was a little bit blotchy. So, you know what? Let's flip this over and see if we can get a better impression the second time. Because, you know, sometimes it's just easier when you have a conditioned stamp. So, do you guys understand what I mean by conditioned? So I'm going to take my hand to it. So when these stamps are manufactured, sometimes they have a film on them from their manufacturing process. So the first time that you use them, if you don't condition them or take off that layer, they don't stamp really nice. So there's lots of different ways. Oh, and of course it's not big enough. That's okay, we'll get another piece of paper. Thank goodness it's paper, right? Just grab another one. I wondered if it wasn't going to fit, but that's okay. No biggie. No biggie. Jenny says, I can't wait for spring warmer temps. Tired of the cold, rainy weather. Yeah, well, we've had snow. Lots of snow here. But we have above 0 degrees today, which is odd, but the wind is a-blowing. Okay, so there's our later image. Let's bring you guys in a little bit if I can. 1 second, I have to stand up so I can bring you guys in. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so before I start coloring things, sometimes I look for my base pattern paper or whatever I'm going to use, because this a lot of the time, excuse me, is going to tell you your color palette. So this is the My Favorite Things Joyful Plaid. It's actually supposed to be a Christmas paper, but it's not. It's beautiful. You could use this for any time of year. But it's filled full of pastels. So if I wanted to put this mouse on this paper, I kind of want to give the same kind of feel. So a lot of times as I'll take out my hex chart from Sandy Allnock, and I'll go through, and I know my, my flowers, I want to do some greens. So there's a really pretty green here. So what I do is I go and match up the color as best I can in my chart. Okay. So I would probably go down in here because there's not a lot of yellow in it. It's a little bit on the bluer side. So I'd go and try and match up as best as I can. And that way I know my color palette's going to match kind of where I'm headed with my papers. So it's a great way to also pick out a color palette to make everything look cohesive. Okay. So it doesn't matter the theme with stuff like this. Plaids, you can use it for birthdays, any type of card. So that's why I kind of go for plaids and polka dots and things like that. So we're going to pull colors right out of our paper. That way the tone or the feel of my card is not going to be like, this is going to be bright blue and yellow. No, because it won't go with this paper. It looks off. It looks funny. So let's start. I have some greens picked already. Okay, and they match our lovely green in our paper. So we're going to start with them because I've already got them picked out and off to the side here. Let's pull you on screen. So we're making this fairly simple. I'm not going to do a lot of blending. We're just going to do 2-color blending today. Hi, Beth. Nope, you haven't missed me. I'm just late today because I was camping with my scouts. So I'm going to actually start with my darker. I've got a BG93. Sorry, they're slightly out of camera there. And we're just going to color in kind of closest part of the leaf to the stem. We're just going to give a little tiny bit of color. We're going to call this little sprig leaves too. And I mean, typically your flowers and plants are not going to be all the same green color, but today they are. It's just easier to stick with that same green. Okay, so you're just putting it kind of in the dippy doo-doos. Okay. Hi, Terry. And then we're just going to blend, like really, really easy blending today. Now, I also find that with no line coloring, you want to take your ink right over top of those lines. Okay. That Distress ink is water-based. It's not going to affect your Copic tips at all. Okay. So go right over it. I find that the ink will also play with, like the ink in your marker will play with the ink on your paper. So sometimes it pushes that ink a little bit farther down, which just adds to that no line color effect. Okay. And like I said, you can do no line coloring with all kinds of mediums. We're not talking just alcohol markers here. I've done it with my pencils, and it comes out beautiful. So there we go. Very, very simple, and that's all you need, especially if you're just starting out with coloring. Please don't be intimidated to do like a 5-color blend. No, don't do that. Just start out simple and easy, because we all have to start somewhere, and we have to learn sometimes. So yeah. Hi, Wanda. Okay, so now we're going to go on to some pinks. So I've chosen a R000 and an R20. And again, we're going to do some flowers. Now, I am going to bring some pink back into our little mousey, but let's do our flowers first. And then maybe we'll bring in some yellows, because there's a really pretty soft yellow, which might go really well with the pinks and the greens. Okay, I'm going to start out dark again. And again, simple. Okay, we're just going to start with our dark. This kind of looks kind of like either an aster or a daisy there. And then maybe we'll do these. These are kind of daisy-like too. And we're just going to do like that dimple sometimes your petals have. Okay, just pulling out really, really simple. And then there's another kind of sort of different little bit of daisy here. And let's see, this one we're going to do right across the bottom against that center. And we're going to flick out. Like I said, coloring doesn't have to be 57 markers. If you want to do 57 markers, do 57 markers. Okay, this is our R000. And again, to help blend, go over your dark one. Okay, and again, it doesn't have to be more than 2 colors. Actually, you can still get a gradient of colors using 1 marker. Okay, so for instance, if I do a stroke of this marker, it's 1 color. When I do it over top, it darkens. So it's very hard to see on camera, but this end of the stroke is lighter, whereas this has 2 times as much ink. So if I go over it again, I'm darkening that color. So you can do shading with 1 marker. Absolutely. Okay, so yes, this would look really fun on your lawn fawn stuff, Terry. Yeah, super cute. We will go back to the stems on our flowers, okay? We'll go back to the green for those, but let's do our flowers now. Okay, and if you want to deepen and darken that pink again because you like the contrast, put a little bit more of your R20 back in there. That's okay. That's the beauty of alcohol markers. You can layer and layer and layer and layer. Sometimes you have to dry it in between, but you can layer them. Okay. There we go. And just drawing it out over top of that ink. Okay, ever so slightly. I just find it blends a little bit better. Okay, we have some pink beauties. Let's go and find a nice soft yellow to add. And then we'll come back to our little pail. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I typically would do this. Bring in my paper. Okay, bring in my hex chart. Sometimes I even flip to, like this is a really good example of how I can pull the proper yellow out. Okay, so we want to go and look. It's kind of buttery. So just take your paper up next to it. And it's actually pretty close to a Y11. So as a blending pair, I could probably do Y11 because it's the closest. And then do a light blend of a Y00. So let me pick those. 1 second. Y00 and a Y11. And these are very, very subtle colors. Of course, yellow is kind of dainty, right? So the newest Lawn Fawn spring release is in the shop. If you're interested, you can head over there. And it is in the shop for purchase. And there's so many cute things. Holy. I looked at it on Friday, I think, and they've knocked it out of the park again. Okay. So we're going to start with our darkest, our Y11. Okay. We're going to do our last 2 remaining. Okay. Sometimes when you have a yellow, I'm just going to kind of make almost petal marks. See how it's dipped at the top there? We're going to dip in with that dark color. And I'll do the stamen in a yellow. Okay, and then we'll come back and blend. And let's see, what are we going to do here? Maybe we'll go with a flick from the center. So this just concentrates that ink in the center. Makes it deeper, darker. Sometimes if I want to darken the shadows in a yellow, I go to my oranges. Okay. And then we're just going to blend. And this one is very, very subtle and soft. So Of course, yellow is really hard to show on camera, and so are pastels, so I will give you a close-up in a second here. Okay, just blending out our yellows. So again, we're trying to mimic the soft feel of the palette. So go and kind of match things up. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. So we're getting there. Okay, so we're done with our yellows. Now I'm just trying to figure out what color we should do our little pale. How about blues? Blues, because blues in the pattern. Let's use some soft blues. So again, I'm going to pull out my chart. Now this is, it's not a green blue. It's very, very light. So, I don't want to go too dark. So maybe a B00, and then we'll blend with a B000. So again, having a chart or having your colors swatched, because you don't need the chart, you can just swatch it. Okay, just put the scribble of your color and then write the name or the number underneath it. It's just handy when somebody else does the work for him, that's all. I know Sandy Alnuk has a variety of hex charts for all kinds of different products. Oh, Karen, believe it or not, I'm not using Bristol paper today. I'm a cheaposaurus, and I buy my white cardstock at Michael's, and everybody says, don't do that, but I make it work because I actually like it. So this is 110 pound Recollections Michael's cardstock. Yep. But Bristol Smooth is really nice. I do have it, but it's over there. Okay, so let's concentrate a fair amount of ink inside our little pail here. So let's go in and put a single coat first, right inside our pail. Okay, and that just denotes that we've got it's hollow, right? It's casting that shadow. Okay, and we can always come back and add color. Remember, you can deepen and darken it with one marker. Yeah, see, Jenny? Okay, so this one I kind of want to give it some faux shininess, you know, because metal is trendy for little pails. So I'm touching the edge, I'm touching that ink, and I'm flicking. So what it does is it touches the paper here, but I get less touching of the tip as I flick out, and that's how you get that almost gradient of color too. Okay, so I'm just touching that and flicking it whatever direction is most comfortable for you, because some people find one direction harder than the other. So you do you. Oops, I got some stuff on his snout. Okay, there's a fix for that. Okay, you can't have Copics without having this. This is a 0 marker or colorless blender. Okay, this is not actual alcohol. It's a specially designed alcohol to work with the markers. Do not refill this with regular rubbing alcohol. And what it's a misnomer for being named a colorless blender. It's not really a blender. It's an ink pusher. Okay, so be aware of that. And you can experiment with it. Okay, so we're going back to our B00. We're doing some flicking. I'm trying not to touch our little mouse there. I'm going to carefully color around his paw and continue to make that flicking motion. Okay. And again, I'm touching that ink. That helps with the no line look. Okay. There, so it's pretty soft. let's actually, before I put that marker down, let's go in and do a double over top of that inside of that pail. So I'm just going over, I haven't changed my markers at all. I'm just putting another coat. So I'm darkening that spot. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, this is my B000. And I'm actually going over top of my previous color, my B00, and just drawing out a little bit more of that color. And it's very, very faint, because remember, we're looking for that pastel-y look. And that's all you need. See, all it is 2 colors. Okay, you don't need all the things. Okay. You can start with 2 or 3 colors and build up your collection. Okay. Now, before I forget, I'm going to do the centers of those little daisies. Because otherwise, we're going to have some naked centers. Okay, so I'm going to do them yellow. So I'm just going to pull out my Y11, which is what we started our bright yellow with. We're just going to pop. Making this simple today, guys. Poppity pop. There. Okay, let's go and do our green stems before I forget. Okay, I'm going back to my BG93, which is the darkest of our 2 greens. And all I'm going to do is trace those stem lines. So there's little stems that are going into the bucket down here. And this also helps with your no line too, because you're going over it with the actual color of the object. Whee! Little stem there. Little stem there. There's a few in the bucket. Don't forget this little teeny one in there. So again, this just helps with that no line effect. Just trace over the lines. Super easy. And I almost forgot this little fella. There we go. So now they're not brown, right? They're not the original ink color. Now they're green, like they would be in nature. Okay, so we have our little mousey to do. We're going to do him in some grays. We're going to keep him soft. Now this time I am going to use a few more markers. We're going to, but we're still going to keep it fairly light. So we're going to go with our toner gray markers. Okay, these are the T's, part of the grays. And I'm going to use 3, possibly 4 T markers this time. Okay. Just easier to put the caps up there for you guys. Okay, starting with our T4. This is our darkest. And you're going to start wherever you think there might be a shadow. And please don't be afraid of doing shadows. It took me a long time to get comfortable with using dark markers. Just go and experiment. I mean, it's just paper. Stamp out a bunch of your favorite critter or person or and that, and practice starting with your dark and then starting with your light, and just see which one like you prefer. Excuse me. Okay, we're going a little bit under his chin, and I'm going to do a touch down the ear. I'm trying not to do too much because this is fairly dark in comparison to the rest of the palette. I'm going to do a little on his leg, down his body. I'm going to do a little on this leg. We'll go up his tushy. We'll do a little tiny bit under his arm there. Oh, maybe touch down his body and down the edge of that pot. And then I will trace his tail. We'll go with our darkest this time. Yeah, and again, so your Your once brown line is now gray because your mouse is gray. There we go. So just color over top. Okay. Second color, our medium tone colors, are T2. And we're just going to go over top of that previous dark color, and this just aids in the blending process. Make sure you go over top of your ink too. This also helps hide that previous line. It makes it look no line. So I'm going to take this. This is our medium tone. I'm actually going to edge his ears. This is another way to hide ink. And again, you can have much lighter ink than I do. I'm almost going to trace his body in this color. Whee! He's got a cute little nose here. I'm just going to trace it out. So instead of having thick black lines all the way around, I have some darks where I need darks and some lights where I need lights. We're going to flick underneath on his chest here. I'm going to flick kind of towards his belly and his tummy. Excuse me. I'm going to go back to his foot. Oh, I just marked it. Oops. That's okay. We can fix it. Under his foot with that dark marker. Okay, back to my medium. I'm just blending that out. I'm going to come in and do his leg. And blend it out. And I'm going to do that line on his back. Okay, we'll do a little bit of flicking here. And again, you can do your shadows wherever the heck you want. Do whatever is most comfortable. And it doesn't have to look real because he's a cartoon. We're doing underneath his paw. Okay, I'm going to do underneath his chinny chin here. And again, if you want to add a tone between the 2 and the 4, just add more 2. Thank you, Sandy. It's all about trying. I'm going to go over my bloopy. And thank goodness it was right on his ear. Because yes, we all make mistakes. And I always do them on camera. Just for you guys, right? Okay, I am going to come back and do kind of the lines in his ears, but I want to do that after I put down the ear coat. So this is a T1, and I'm hoping this is juicy enough. Something tells me it's not. Okay, hang on one second. I'm just going to grab my refill. T1. I know you're in here. There you are. Okay, let's push this aside for the second so I'm not blooping on it. When you refill your markers, don't take out this tip. Never, 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 because you'll break it. Guaranteed. When you refill, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either pull this out. You use a pair of tweezers. I just use my hands. And this is the old version of the refill. And then there's skinnier versions now. And then you just hold your marker vertical and you drop it in there. Okay? Don't overfill your markers. If anything, kind of back off. Go, yeah, I did, 10 drops, 15 drops. That will work. The other way to do it is to leave this in and just apply ink to the tip. Now this is a little bit slower, but you can actually refill your marker by not taking that nib out. Just go slow, because if you oversaturate the nib, it actually dribbles down the barrel, and you don't want to waste ink. So you can do it that way too. Okay. And you can, of course, thank goodness they're refillable because they're not a cheap marker. They're an investment. So if you can see, I've got ink that's traveled down my barrel and is now saturating the tip. So I'm not sure if you can see, because see how it's white? And the ink is just wicking right into that tip. And that's exactly what I need, because that's the tip I want to use. So just give it a moment to draw down. This one apparently was really dry. Okay, it's almost to the tip. And leave the other end off when you want it to draw too. It draws faster into the dry nib. Okay. One more second, it'll be at the end there. Come on, little fella, faster, faster. And then I try to color and get the ink running. Okay. There we go. Nice and smooth now. Now it's going to work a lot better. Okay, so that's T1. So the other thing too is if you take both caps off, it's still written on the barrel what number it is, okay? So if you need to go back. Okay, this is our T1. This is our lightest. And I think I am going to bring in a T0. I'm going right over his eyeballs, okay? Right over. I'm going to do a little bit of T2. And quite often I go over my previous dark colors. It just helps with blending them. You can do that foot. Is under his belly. And then I'll flick a little tiny bit into his ears. Okay. That's our one. I am going to bring in the lightest. I'm going to go for a T0. Okay, then I always put a little undercoloring in my critter ears, whatever color they are, because they don't tend to be straight pink. They have like an undertone of gray or brown, tan. Okay, we're going to go right over his snout. We're going to keep his snout kind of light. And then I'm going to go over his entire body and blend everything. And if you're not happy, you can always go in again. Remember, alcohol markers layer. Or if you don't have a color in between two colors, say you only had a 0 and a 2, you can actually take your 0 and you take your T2 and you can use either marker to color, but you do what's called a tip to tip. So you touch your tips together. Okay. And what happens is you get marker on the other tip. So I've got T2 on the end. So when I color, excuse me, with my T0, it's got a little bit of T2 on the end. So it makes a color in between. So you get a blend. So this is 0, this is 2. It gives you another color, okay? Now, it doesn't give you color for very long. Just depends on how much ink you have transferred. Now, when you're done with this one that you've transferred over, make sure you give it another scribble onto some paper off to the side, okay? Because you want to get rid of the ink that's drawn up there. Okay, I'm going to go back to our 2. I'm going to give, we're going to do his mouth. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my T4. We're going to do his nose. Because it's fairly dark. And because I do it last, I'm not blending it into the paper. We're going to do his eyeball. Okay, now we're going to do his whiskers. So you can do them, I'm going to rotate. Whee! Okay, now I'm also going to use our T4 and I'm going to go over our bucket handle. Okay, And of course I could have gone over it with blue. It's just not going to show up as much as if I use the toner gray. There we go. So, excuse me, I'm going to lose my voice. So no line coloring is same coloring as if you had a really dark outline. You just want to go over your ink with your medium, whatever you're using. It could be watercolor. Distress inks do really well with watercolor. For no line, it looks really good. You can try this when you have characters where you don't want them to have a black outline. So before I forget here, we're going to add a little pink to his ears. And this is an R000. This is the same R that we used. And I'm just going into his ears. And again, you can layer and layer and layer to add color. Okay, just a cute, and you could even do like his cheekies. Give him some pink cheeks or pink butt or whatever you want to. So the next time you color, you know, pull out your color palette. Of course, I have my color palette. And have fun picking out colors and see if you can achieve a no-line coloring look. And it's okay to still see that brown. There's nothing wrong with that. But go over your ink and experiment. Experiment with the things that you love to color with. All right. For those of you that commented, as soon as the live is done, I will pick a winner. And all you have to do is send me personally a PM. So I will put my name on the comment. So you can just hit my name and then send me a PM with your mailing address. And I will send you my original card, which is buried right now. I can't find it. So give it a try. It's really easy. It's just like coloring an image with a brown outline. You might have to accentuate your colors, but hey, go for it. Awesome. Okay, thanks so much for joining me this Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday. All right, thanks guys. Bye. I'll be posting a winner right away. Bye guys.